I'm Craig Lawless, and this is Sounds Like Infrastructure. Whenever I see a Tesla driving around the city or on a highway, I still get a little excited. It feels futuristic. And I think what it is that these cars represent all the hype we've been hearing about driverless cars, about how our autonomous vehicles will pick us up, turn on the latest movie, and whisk us off to dinner. And if you've been browsing YouTube videos like I have, you'll already know that the hype is almost a reality. So the question Ferrovial and Cintra have been asking is whether there's a way to improve our roads for this new type of vehicle, whether there's new technology that can be used, and whether we can do that while at the same time making the roads better for traditional vehicles too. To answer that question, we got in touch with Jen.
My name is Jen Duthie. I'm a Senior Innovation Manager with Cintra.
Jen's role is to help find a way to design all this new technology into Ferrovial and Cintra's highways. And she's doing that with a project called AIVIA. You probably have a smartphone. You might even have a smart fridge. Well, this is smart infrastructure.
When we say smart, we usually mean that there's some technology component, there's perhaps some computing or some communications.
And while the asphalt and physical signage will all still be there, going smart is adding this digital side to make the trip on a road better.
So ideally safer, more efficient, more pleasant experience.
There have already been some changes to start making our existing highways smart highways. And our producer Kevin García King talked to Jen to find out what they are. You'll hear Kevin's voice during the conversation. Some of these changes are physical changes to the signage and road markings so that humans and sensors can see better. Some tech you're already familiar with is there too. We've already got barrier-free tolling, cameras and radar on our roads.
But what's changing now is this ability to connect the infrastructure to the vehicles themselves. So it's not just the infrastructure gathering information that's helping operate it more efficiently, but we're actually able to communicate to vehicles that information directly, and also get information back from vehicles on the roadway about what they're experiencing. So what's changing is more advanced technology and a lot more data and a lot of potential for improving how we operate the roadway.
And what's happening with vehicles? I guess nowadays, we see a mixture of traditional autonomous, in some cases, not many, connected vehicles. So why is this infrastructure so important to be ready to, sort of communicate with all those different type of vehicles? What is happening with the vehicles now, and how will that transition to smarter vehicles happen? Will we see that in the near future where we have a mixture of traffic, or is it happening right now on our roads?
It's definitely happening right now. So most vehicles that are new out on the market have some sort of connected capabilities. So they're connecting to the internet, maybe just for infotainment purposes. Perhaps they have some safety features. But most vehicles have that capability to transmit and receive information. But people hold on to their vehicles for a long time. So I personally have what we call a level 0 vehicle, which is a dumbest vehicle you can have. It doesn't have any sort of communication infrastructure, but I'm holding on to it because, car prices are so high right now. So I think there's a lot of people that will take a long time to get vehicles that have this connectivity. So as an infrastructure operator, we know that it's important to be able to, when we say a smart roadway, it needs to be a smart roadway for everyone and wherever they are on that technology spectrum of their vehicle, right? So if they have the latest Tesla or Polestar or any of these, newer vehicles with some automation capabilities, we want to be able to take advantage of that. But we also want to make sure that we're providing information to drivers of all vehicle types so that their drive can be as safe as possible as well. So it's going to take a long time. There's been a lot of hype around autonomous vehicles. And we think about it in terms of levels of automation. And we're still pretty far away, despite claims made by some automakers, we're still pretty far away from having these vehicles with full autonomy being market ready in all different conditions and all different geographies around the world.
And in terms of the hype that you were talking about, so seeing this technology, already in place, and for yourself being a person that has seen, sort of the evolution in the mobility sector and are very like into, civil engineering and infrastructure as well. So does that make you excited to start to see these changes, or do you think it's a sort of a fake hype where, maybe it's something that grows all of a sudden and it doesn't continue? So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm very excited. I'm not surprised that it's taken so long. People get all hyped up about every new technology, and then there's a lot of complexities with operating technology on a roadway network. It's not, creating a smartphone is not a simple endeavor, but I'd say creating an automated vehicle is harder because it has to work in so many different conditions that are really can be hard to simulate in a lab. So it could be an animal going across the street, let alone, what we see every day, people crossing the street, people on bicycles, again, all types of vehicles that may or may not have this technology in them. There might be a work zone on your way to work with workers in the roadway. There might be snow or bad conditions. So these vehicles have to be able to operate across so many different conditions. And every sensor that they put on the vehicles, has things that it's good at and things that it's not very good at. And so it's taking a while to figure out what's that right combination of sensors so that the vehicles really can operate in all conditions. So I think we will get there. It's just going to be a longer ride, and it'll be a much more incremental evolution to get to more of an automated vehicle future.
Roads and highways make up a massive chunk of the infrastructure in the United States. And saying that you're going to build smart highways makes it sound like there's going to be even more roads built. And while we can build new roads that have these new technologies, Jen and the team are also coming up with ways to make the existing road network smarter and adapting the infrastructure that's already out there.
So we're looking at retrofitting existing roadways, right? So our nation has an extensive roadway network, and building roadways can be a very expensive endeavor. So we feel strongly that we need to leverage the infrastructure that we already have, and just make sure that it increases in how smart it is, sort of in parallel to how vehicles are increasing and how smart they are. So when we develop a smart roadway, we're not building a new roadway. We're taking an existing roadway and probably even existing poles that are along the roadway and installing sensors, or thinking about, what data flows we can have through the communication networks to and from vehicles on that roadway.
Can you give us an example of how you're retrofitting, this technology into our current assets, or how people or other companies are doing it at the moment?
Sure. So, one example I can give is on the North Tarrant Expressway in Dallas. We're installing sensors, a whole host of sensors. And, as we learn, again, what is that best combination of sensors to be able to get the information in a timely manner, the best information in a timely manner to drivers. We're trialing a whole host of different radar, LiDAR, cameras that have AI capabilities along a section of the North Tarrant Expressway. And we'll be doing a full-on experiment with a research team to really refine what we've developed in terms of what's the best logic for fusing that information from the sensors, sending it out to vehicles, and also ingesting information that vehicles are giving to us. So we will be, as this initiative develops, we will be pushing information out to vehicles directly that have connected capabilities, and also pushing information via traditional methods, so onto the dynamic message signs, those message boards that you see along roadways, leveraging those more and thinking about other ways that we can communicate, again, with any type of driver that might be out there on the road.
While it might be nice to think that our roads will be full of autonomous vehicles in the next decade, that's just not true. And so Jen and the team have to design the highways with this in mind. Their highways have to offer extra services to the cars that can use them, and also improve the experience for more traditional vehicles. But it's not just safety for cars that they're looking at, it's safety for all road users. And that sometimes means people who are on the highway, but not in a vehicle: pedestrians.
Yeah, when we talk about needing to consider pedestrians in smart roads, we sometimes get the question that, right now we're focused on providing smart road infrastructure on highways, and typically there aren't people walking on highways, so why would we consider that? Well, two things. One, we might not anticipate people to be walking on highways, but we know that happens, and so we need to be ready and we need to protect them. But two, the people on the highways are often working on the highways. So whenever there's any sort of work zone or staff that are out there helping a stalled vehicle driver, we need to protect them. So they're vulnerable users, setting up traffic control and doing their best to mitigate whatever's happening on the roadway. We need to make sure that we can let drivers know what they can see ahead of them so that they can move over to another lane and keep themselves safe as well as the workers safe.
And just going back, and I know you mentioned this earlier, but having a mixture of traffic on the road, so, it poses a challenge when it comes to guaranteeing that safety to all the users. Is a big statement. How do you think, thanks to the technology of smart roadways or smart roadways itself, how do you think they're making safety, or they're enhancing safety on the roadway for all vehicles, both traditional and autonomous?
Right. So there's definitely been a thought put out there that perhaps we separate off the vehicles that have these technology capabilities and have a lane segregated for them. And that is one way to handle it, and that could be efficient at moving the connected and automated vehicles. But we're committed to providing enhanced service to everyone and having everyone operate on the same facility. So equity is a guiding principle in the design of smart roads as we see them. And so we wanted to provide information in traditional methods, such as the message boards that we see on the highways, and also provide information to third-party providers such as Waze and Google, so that people, maybe their vehicle's not connected, but they have a cell phone. Most of us do, in their vehicle, and they can get information that way. Or we'll have roadside units that communicate via the 5G network that can communicate information directly to vehicles that have connectivity. So it's almost a kitchen sink approach at this time to really take care of all the different types of users that are out there as we kind of work down this evolution to perhaps more automated vehicles in the future.
There's an important aspect here that is one company or one entity cannot make everything. So there needs to be someone who makes the infrastructure, another company who, works on the technology around it. How important do you think collaboration between companies or entities, even public or private, is in this matter?
Yeah, we think strongly that partnerships are critical. Ferrovial and Cintra have a long history of excellence in construction and roadway operations. And we certainly bring a lot to the table there. And we have been innovating across all of our different types of projects for a long time. That said, there are definitely pieces of the smart road, like we don't manufacture sensors. So we need to partner with different sensor providers to be able to put those out on the roadways. We're looking at different partnership options for rolling out the platform that will contain all of the AIVIA logic. So some combination of in-house innovation as well as a different private partner. There's so many interesting players in this mobility space, and there's so much changing all the time with vehicles and with technology, that it really is important for us to have solid partnerships in place so that we can stay on the cutting edge and provide the best service.
When you're working on a project like this, collaboration is key. And while that might mean collaborating with tech companies and other private companies, it also means partnering with governments and the public sector. And these collaborations are usually called public-private partnerships. And Jen thinks that they're one of the keys to developing the smart roads of the future.
I think that P3s, or public-private partnerships, are critical to making this happen. Public agencies have a lot of strengths when it comes to delivering infrastructure, delivering service, but it can be very challenging for them, given their just the way that they're structured, for them to be able to provide the technology and that's needed to create smart roads. So to have that technology, the capacity to put the technology on the roadways, the capacity to maintain it. A lot of maintenance budgets for roadway agencies are already stretched thin, and the thought of putting more infrastructure on the roadways is difficult for them to think about. And so a P3 model could be a way to provide this service, but without putting that extra strain on their maintenance and or operations staff, and create a partnership there. And there might be some unique, business models and business opportunities that could arise that allow the public side and the private side to do what they do best, and then collaboratively provide this service to the public.
We've been talking about, many different, I think, use cases and examples of things that will be implemented and different success stories. But I just want to focus a little bit more on, not the negative side, but the sort of the limitations that technologies like this can have. So what do you think are the potential stoppers or limitations that smart highways or smart roadways can encounter?
Well, one that we talk about quite a bit in terms of I don't know if stopper is the right word, or some sort of just a challenge that we have, is the regulatory framework or lack thereof that we have in the United States around connected vehicles. So there was a path for a long time toward having a mandate around dedicated short-range communication, so a way for vehicles and infrastructure to communicate. And when the federal government decided not to pursue that mandate any longer, we are left, trying to figure out what are the vehicle manufacturers doing, and then how can we best provide service that leverages what they're doing, right? Because a smart road that communicates with vehicles is only so useful as the number of vehicles that it can communicate with. So it doesn't, make a lot of sense for us to put out a smart road system that doesn't work with the types of technology that the vehicle manufacturers are putting out, and that changes year by year and maybe more frequently. So we're definitely hoping for some more clarity on the regulation side, so that we can make sure that we're making good investments in the technology that we're putting on the roadways, and the regulation could also provide some stability that would allow for more investment with a lot more players in this space. So that's something that we talk a lot about. So in the absence of strong regulation or standards, how do we create the most effective smart road system that's future-proof to the extent possible?
Mm-hmm. And what are the things that are coming up? So we were talking about, retrofitting this technology. We're talking about 5G, sensors, but maybe there's something that you're actually working, or that the whole sort of industry is working towards, that we're going to see in the next coming years.
Sure. So one thing that I'm excited about, I don't know if it'll sound exciting, but we are, pretty excited about what's been happening with the work zone data exchange. So, a lot of vehicle manufacturers will tell you they might not need information from the roadway in order to operate. And they're doing that, or they're saying that partly because they don't know, or they can't guarantee that every roadway operator is going to give them that information. So the vehicles need to be able to operate, without extra help per se. But one area where we feel strongly that extra help is needed for safety is work zone data. Because as an infrastructure operator, we have a much closer knowledge of when we're putting work zones out and what those work zones look like. And so creating a data feed, and the federal government's been spearheading a process to have standards around that data, to be able to put out common data feeds that can be read in real time so that people know when the work zones are in place. Because we might have, announcements of, we plan a work zone tomorrow, but having maybe real-time sensors at the work zone site, that could be on the maintenance truck, it could be on the cones, that can then have actual second-by-second information on how the work zone is set up and where drivers need to avoid. We think could be very useful information.
Just looking into the future, how long do you think until we see this technology fully implemented? Is it realistic to think that, maybe in the 5 coming years we'll see something, or is it, for full implementation, there needs to be more time than that, let's say 10, 20 years?
Yeah, it's hard to say what does fully implemented mean, because technology just keeps evolving, and so it'll be a lifetime. But we are implementing some smart road technologies with some of the most critical safety use cases on I-66 outside the Beltway in Virginia by the end of this calendar year. So really getting some of these projects put out on the ground this calendar year. And then we anticipate doing it with some of our roadways, our other roadways in Texas starting the following year, so 2023. And then our idea is, we're learning a lot of lessons through rolling out our AIVIA Smart Roads platform on some of our concessions, but really creating this to be modular so that it could be used by any roadway agency, and having it kind of plug in to their existing systems, and possibly having software and or hardware type solutions. But as far as like full build out of what we anticipate now, some of our later horizon use cases, as we talk about, are dependent on the level of connectivity. So really dependent on the proliferation of connected vehicles within the fleet. So it's not so much a question of, are the smart roads ready, but are the vehicles ready to take advantage of the smart roads? So, I think as far as what we're planning now and baseline smart roads, we'll have some really good progress to report in the next year and 2 years.
Just one last question, and this came to mind while we were talking about, the different solutions and technologies, but, in comparison to the rest of the competitors out there, what do you think makes AIVIA different? What do you think is the differentiator that, proves it to be more accurate, more efficient, more, useful than other technologies out there?
Sure. I think 2 things make AIVIA stand out. And one is the tie with Ferrovial and Cintra, with that history of constructing and operating roadways, really deep knowledge of what that means, and maintaining roadways and what it takes to maintain intelligent transportation system devices. This is something that we've been doing for a very long time. So I think that's a differentiating factor. And then secondly, our commitment to providing service to all road users and people of all vehicle types. Equity is a key focus of the company, a key driving factor in addition to safety. So making sure that we're providing benefit to people that have the latest and greatest cars, but also people that don't. We want to make the traveling experience a safe one, an efficient one, an enjoyable one for anyone, regardless of their level of technology or level of income. So I think that definitely is a differentiating factor as well, versus some companies that are more focused on providing solutions that are just for that highest end class of vehicles.
And what do you think are some of the opportunities? And, we talked about the challenges, but maybe there's opportunities out there that are coming up or that you forecast in the future.
There's so many opportunities. I think, the advent of 5G and the evolution of the communication system is very exciting. And I just, I remember being in coding class in high school where you would be trying to create a website and you would have it run and it would take 10 minutes to get it loaded, and we're at a point where we are seeing information instantaneously. So having this really rapid communication is exciting in that it really opens the door for so much more than just the infotainment that we're used to in our cars. So I mean, I'm most excited about the safety applications. Anything that we can do to prevent collisions of any type, to make sure that we're, as infrastructure operators, we are good caretakers of our travelers and helping them get to their destination safely. That if we can really unlock all the value of this technology, I'm hopeful that we can really get to this vision of zero serious injuries and fatalities on the roadways that we outfit with these the smart road technologies.
A big thanks to Jen for chatting to us for this episode, and to Pablo Ferrando Rubio, Mark Segal, Miguel Carpio, and Adrian Talbot for helping us understand the future of smart highways and AIVIA. If you're looking for more info on the AIVIA project, you can go to aiviasmartroads.com. AIVIA is spelled AIVIA. Sounds Like Infrastructure is a collaboration between Ferrovial and Veleta Media. Our team includes Kevin García King, José García Guaita, Arantxa Gulias, Bethany Ashcroft, Paloma González, Fátima Gracia, and myself, Craig Lawless. If you like the podcast and want more episodes, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen, and you can follow Ferrovial on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and be sure to check out our blog for more stories like this one. I'm Craig Lawless, and this is Sounds Like Infrastructure.